feeling like I'm Akademiks. Can't ride away.
I don't know why the hell 1090J going viral right now, but apparently he's going viral for, if you don't know, Larry Hoover was pardoned by Donald Trump. Now, we covered this, right? Larry Hoover, actually, he wasn't pardoned. His sentence was commuted. And by the way, when me and Wack was talking, like, it's interesting that Wack he had like not a proper understanding of what it is. A commuted sentence means you're still guilty. Your sentence is just considered full, like you've done your sentence, even if you've done it a day, even if you haven't even started. So his sentence got commuted, okay? And if you don't know, Larry Hoover is synonymous with being the founder or the person who has popularized the growth of the gangsta disciples. So the GDs, that is essentially their leader, okay? What ended up happening is that after his commutation by the president of the United States, Donald Trump, we had 1090 Jake, who then put out a video claiming, hey, I know y'all love this guy, but this guy ratted back in the day. Now, we all know these days is about paperwork, this, that, and third, whatever. And let me play a little bit of what 1090 Jake said.
Man, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of EOS. It's 1090 Jake, man. I'm rocking with y'all and y'all rocking with me. And for this video, we're going to be speaking on some prehistoric paperwork that hit the internet that I'm not even responsible for. But I fact-checked it. And in this video, we're going to be speaking on Larry Hoover identifying two rival gang members to police that shot him.
Tell him, bro. Who free, bro? My mother, he free. Who? Larry Hoover, he free, bro. Yes, sir. Larry free. They mad that we here, GD. Free them gangsters. Free Larry Hoover.
Now, President Trump just gave the presidential middle finger to anyone who ever called him racist after not only pardoning NBA YoungBoy who's about to go on a mega tour, but commuting the sentence of the Larry Hoover.
His name is Larry Hoover. He's the reputed leader of the black gangster Disciples street gang, one of the largest in the nation. For 20 years, he's been locked behind prison walls because of a murder conviction. This week, he goes before the state parole board and he could soon be a free man.
Done my time. I paid my debt to society. Anytime you do a extensive amount of time, it can have two effects. It can harden you, or it can make you think. And I've thought.
Now, for those that don't know, Larry Hoover is the founder and former leader of the Gangsta Disciples, a major street gang based in Chicago that spread from the Midwest, dominating parts of the South, and even reaching out to the Northeast. To this day, many prominent rappers are members of the Gangsta Disciples, while other rappers have been known sworn enemies to the Gangsta Disciples. Larry Hoover, a kingpin, gang lord, murderer, is a man whose name has held power for over 50 years. But today, his legacy is in question as the unthinkable has happened. Remo from No Jumper would post to Instagram a photo of what appears to be prehistoric paperwork, detailing a shooting in which Larry Hoover himself was the victim. Parker High School sat in the Inglewood neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. On September 4th, 1968, it was the first day of school, and it would be turned to a crime scene. Leader of the Supreme Gangsters, 18-year-old Larry Hoover informed the police that he was standing in the school hall just outside the principal's office when two members of the East Side Disciples appeared. They were identified as 18-year-old James Highsmith and 20-year-old Leonard Longstreet, and they did.
Now, if you don't know what's going on, essentially, 1090 Jake is spelling out a story from an old newspaper article that is claiming that Larry Hoover, the super gangster and the guy who's synonymous with the gangster disciples, he pretty much cooperated with the police.
Did not go to Parker High. Hoover told police the two walked past me in the hall and Highsmith smiled. Then Longstreet said, "Burn him." And Highsmith pulled a gun and started shooting. I got hit. Larry Hoover, the 18-year-old leader of the Supreme Gangsters that came before the Gangsta Disciples' creation, flat out told the police two rival gang members entered his school and shot him. Bullets struck 2 other students, both 15 years old. Larry and the 2 others were all shot in the legs and rushed to a hospital. Only minutes after the shooting, police arrested the 2 gang members who were out on bond for 2 separate shootings. A Cook County grand jury would indict the 2 men on charges of aggravated battery on Larry Hoover. Now this is going to piss a lot of people off, but before I do that, I wanted to confirm whether this was even true, because this didn't seem to be an arrest report. This looked like a newspaper clipping. So I dug into the Chicago Tribune dating back 57 years ago, and what I found was page 14 of the Chicago Tribune from September 5th, 1968, the day after the shooting. The article was titled, "Police Arrest 2 in Shooting of 3 Students, Gang Rivalry Blamed for Violence." 3 youths were shot down in Parker High School in what police described as a continuing battle between rival street gangs. Inglewood police said the shooters were identified by the victims in the hospital and several other witnesses. The police identified Larry Hoover as a gang member, and again, the article would state Hoover told police who shot him and how it happened. Now this would be considered snitching by anyone following the quote-unquote code. But what about the one who created the code? This was Larry fucking Hoover, the founder of the Gangster Disciples, a man whose name is at the top of Chicago gang lore along with Al Capone. And this wasn't the last time he'd be mentioned in a newspaper. 2 years later, it was 1970, and Hoover was one of 3 arrested for gunning down a 19-year-old on 69th. 3 years after that, a 24-year-old was kidnapped and shot to death. Hoover would be picked up on a murder warrant, and a week later, a witness set to testify against Hoover was found dead on the south side with 2 holes in the back of his head. It was too late though. The 26-year-old had already given a deposition to police stating he witnessed Hoover and another man kidnap the victim the day before the victim was murdered. They dumped his body in an alley, allegedly because he was suspected of stealing drugs from the gang's supply. This murder was what took Larry Hoover off the streets of Chicago at the age of 23. Deemed a ruthless killer who'd been involved in multiple shootings and murders, Hoover was sentenced to 200 years in state prison.
What?
While inside, Hoover continued to lead the Gangster Disciples, which led to a 17-year federal investigation. In 1995, Hoover was indicted by the feds from state prison and 2 years later sentenced to 6 federal life sentences for conspiracy, extortion, money laundering, drugs, and continuing to engage in a criminal enterprise. Larry Hoover ran the Illinois state prison system like a gangster disciple warden, so the feds took him where he'd be helpless, stripping him of all power. In prison since 1973, Hoover spent nearly 30 years at ADX Florence, the federal supermax. His neighbors would be terrorists, mass killers, and cartel leaders. His cell could only hold 1 man. A shower would be brought to his cell, and his mail would be seen through a screen as physically touching it was too much of a privilege. Larry Hoover, for the last 30 years, has been in a cold concrete hell until now. Trump commuted the sentence of Larry Hoover, which led many to believe Hoover was going to be a free man. But many fail to realize Hoover was serving 200 years before the feds stepped in, and he has to finish it. A bittersweet victory for those that know him, as he's one step closer to home being now that he'll be back in Illinois. But at 78 years old, it isn't known how long he has to continue fighting for his freedom. One would assume he'd be treated like a god in Illinois State Prison. The man is a Chicago legend, but one can also wonder why is it always when someone's about to be released, paperwork comes out of nowhere. We saw the same thing happen with Big Meech, and how everyone, including Meech, thought he'd be welcomed home like royalty, and instead, the former drug lord is doing Instagram promo. But what about the GDs? How are they going to react to reading the clear black and white of Larry?
Okay, so let me just stop it here. And the next update, if you guys don't know, I'm gonna watch this later. So Wack 100, I know Wack is involved in everything. Okay, Wack 100 talked to the guy who, remember this whole thing said Larry Hoover told people whatever. Hoover told on a shooter. The actual shooter actually came out, and the shooter basically said Larry Hoover never told on me. And Wack 100 got this guy on the phone.
What up, YouTube? This is...
No. Where is that? Sorry, chat. I know some of y'all might not give a fuck. Hold on. Where is it? Okay, I think this is.
What's the word, y'all? Person that internet.
Here we go.
To that, with the narrative that the individuals that was involved in this shooting that happened with Larry Hoover, where people are running around with the narrative that Larry Hoover told on these individuals. So I'm gonna let the brother speak and tell me if there's some truth to that, no truth to that. My disposition is newspaper article is not looked at as legal documents, so I've been standing against it. So I'm gonna let the brother speak, let y'all know who he is. We all see the names that was posted on the internet about the shooters, and he gonna tell us what his facts of how this situation went, what they are. Go ahead, brother. Yeah, my name is James Hunter-Smith.
Okay, so let's just be clear. The guy, so Wack gets the guy who supposedly would be claiming Larry Hoover snitched on him, and the guy basically, I'm giving you a spoiler, the guy basically says Larry Hoover never snitched on me.
It's the shooting call. It's not alleged. I did do the shooting and I did serve time in prison. But it wasn't at the behest of Larry Hoover. Larry Hoover never told me. Matter of fact, there was over 100 people in the hallway, so there wasn't no way everybody knew I did it. Not first of all, and secondly, and more importantly, is that the whole narrative that the newspaper had and a lot of people was repeating in a lot of books never did happen like that. As long as he wasn't with me, he was down the hallway.
Now, I could stop it here, and I could say, yo, listen, and I like 1090 Jake. 1090 Jake is someone who I think is a cool guy. I think he's usually pretty accurate, but I do want to tell 1090 Jake, I hope he understands what's going on. There is no just straight black and white when it comes to this whole paperwork thing. Number one, people don't care about snitches. Number two, there's some people beyond reproach. Larry, you have to, if you are going to go expose Larry Hoover as a snitch, you better go get the VHS tape of him telling in the interrogation room. I keep telling y'all, it's more important to be liked than to be right. If Larry Hoover is deemed a snitch, everybody who bangs GD is going to look at themselves like they wasted their life. This is crazy. So already, you're going up against an entire army of people who are claiming this gang that this guy is like the godfather of. They're claiming his gang, and you're trying to say their leader is a snitch. Come on, 1090 Jake. I don't know if your information is right or not, because I've heard what Wack 100 and other people have said, which is basically, the feds had this corrupt type of thing where they wanted to get these street gangs out of here, so routinely police would lie about these guys and say they said X, Y, and Z. However, you would never see it in court because they would never get these guys to say X, Y, and Z. But they would say it to try to mislead other people to be like, oh, this guy who you think is super powerful is snitching. I don't want to get into that. I hope that, I can't tell 1090 Jake what to do, but I think 1090 Jake should realize all of this paperwork nonsense, it's always subjective. It depends on who, it depends on what, it depends on when, and it depends on how many people like him. Do I believe that Larry Hoover cooperated? I have zero idea. Do I believe that everybody has an interest to make sure anybody who criticizes Larry Hoover goes away or feels some type of repercussion? Yes, he's not Big Meech. Big Meech was some get money nigga, fly nigga, doing his thing. The ideals and principles that Larry Hoover has instilled that people who are gangster disciples eventually have adopted, it's like finding out that Jesus was the biggest sinner. Imagine you're a Christian, but find out Jesus was actually the devil the whole time. that realization would shatter your foundation, it would shatter everything. Again, I don't know the truth about Larry Hoover, but I hope 1090 Jake takes this as a learning lesson. This idea of paperwork ain't paperwork for everybody. Okay? So you thought, and by the way, obviously this wasn't necessarily footage, or not footage, but paperwork that 100% told us that this guy did this. But I hope he understands. What you trying to do with paperwork, Larry Hoover is bigger than that program. And that's a fact. I'll keep playing a little bit more of it and then we move on.
Nobody tell me to burn that van. 2 girls came and told me that they was coming down there to jump on me, but I could have left, but I had a pistol, so I waited for them. And that's what happened. Got you. So y'all had y'all personal issues, regardless of what it was. You was the shooter. There was a bunch of people in the hallway that probably gave description or probably do who you was or saw whatever it was they saw. But with you fighting the case, Larry Hoover was never a name that cooperated against you, is what you're saying. I'm saying that plus he could have never cooperated with me because I already pleaded out.
So
and
the
if
guy
you felt like that was true, you were supposed to do your.
So this guy's basically saying,
That's what your paperwork read.
the guy is saying basically that I'm calling him Wack. He's saying that Larry Hoover never did anything. Anyway, I'm gonna just call Wack just to get some confirmation on what's going on, because I got to figure out if it's selective politicking, as Wack would say, happening. It's gonna be a quick call. I'm not gonna stay on long if he answers. I think Wack might be in the middle of some cheeks. You're on the 4th ring, you usually be like, it's clipped, right?
Your call.
Okay. All right. Wait, what? Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll try to figure it out, but apparently, yeah, so I feel bad for 1090J because I don't really think he cares that much about exposing people as snitchers. And I think he's learned an important lesson. People don't really want to hear that shit about people they like. They don't want to hear that, okay? I mean, if we really think about this honestly, Larry Hoover has served decades in prison. He's old. I think he's like in his 60s or 70s. He's been in jail for a long time. To have the conversation on if he's a snitch or not, a lot of people find that as, yo, come on now, And, I hope 1090J takes that and goes forward with it and just realizing these niggas don't give a fuck. So if you're going to keep doing that, you might as well make it a lucrative situation where you're not thinking you're doing something to help the public. And you could pick and choose your battles because you got to. Anyway.